If you were to tell me 5 years ago that in the year of 2025, Addison Rae would be a Grammy-nominated artist, Trisha Paytas had made her Broadway debut, and Julia Fox was a name I should know, I would have looked you up and down, ever so slowly, with a hint of concern, and said,
"Is it crack? Is that what you smoke? Do you smoke crack?"
But then I would have remembered, this is America. Rebrand, they told me. Rebrand my black. Those aren't the original lyrics, but you get my meaning. Welcome back to Lonnie's Lens. My name is Kaylani. If you love thoughtful deep dives, camp, and a bit of whimsy, you're in the right place. My last video on this channel was on Perfidia Beverly Hills and Honora and how we police women in film. It's quite literally my best video, and y'all are sleeping on it. But hey, there's no accounting for taste, right? And that's kind of at the heart of today's video. I also have my 100K Q&A up on my second channel, so if that interests you, everything will be linked in the description below, along with my socials. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you've been here before. And with that, let's go ahead and get into today's video. I decided to do something a little different this November, a complete no-buy month. The idea was to be more intentional with my spending and instead redirect that money toward mutual aid and organizations I care about. But before I could even think about where to donate, I needed to actually understand where my money was going in the first place. And that's why I'm so excited to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Rocket Money. Honestly, Rocket Money has made this whole challenge possible. First, I used it to get a complete overview of all of my finances in one place. Instead of logging into 5 different accounts and trying to figure out where all my money was coming and going, everything was right there in a single dashboard. But the highlight for me is the subscription management. I learned that I was paying for 2 streaming services I literally hadn't opened in months and a couple of free trials that I forgot to cancel, but Rocket Money tracked all of them automatically and I was able to cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. That freed up money I could actually put toward the causes I wanted to support instead of just letting it go to waste. If you're also trying to be more intentional with your money, Rocket Money makes it all so much easier. So go to rocketmoney.com/Lonnie's Lens to get started for free. You can also scan the QR code or click the link in my description, and you can unlock even more features when you sign up for premium. If you're like me, you've likely been confused by the constant media push of people like Addison Rae, Julia Fox, and Trisha Paytas. These women have millions of followers, insane career opportunities for their level of talent, stints on Broadway, roles in blockbuster films, and features on critically acclaimed shows like SNL and Euphoria. While doing research for this video, I found a compilation of Trisha Paytas saying the N slur and giggling about Palestine faster than I could find any apology.
So I sang the N-word one time.
Anyways, we're for Israel, not Palestine.
No, why are you saying that?
Oh. What do you mean we're not for Israel?
We're for people.
Okay, we're for all people, but for Israel all the way.
But as per usual, I'm getting ahead of myself. I've seen the term icon thrown around recklessly before, but to see it used to describe the women I'll be discussing today, to be frank, pisses me off. But I am a student of Audre Lorde, so I will be channeling that anger into today's discussion for some actionable reflection and change. I cannot hide my anger to spare you guilt, nor hurt feelings, nor answering anger. For to do so, insults and trivializes all our efforts. Guilt is not a response to anger, it is a response to one's own actions or lack of action. So don't mistake my anger for cruelty, and if you feel guilty watching that guilt isn't a response to me, it's a response to your own actions or lack of action. If it leads to change, then it can be useful. But as Lorde explains, all too often, guilt is just another name for impotence, for defensiveness, destructive of communication. It becomes a device to protect ignorance and the continuation of things the way they are. But don't you worry your pretty little head, I will not be able to, or even really try to, contain the disdain and contempt I feel towards the mediocrity of these women and the harm they've caused.
I will no longer be hiding how vapid and untalented I think people are. A lot of you are very mean-spirited, and you deserve to fail.
I'm also a student of RuPaul, and I was actually listening when he said it takes charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, but all these women have is nerve and a level of shamelessness that is off the charts. But they also have a clear understanding of the attention economy and how low our standards have become as passive consumers of pop culture, and they use it to their advantage. One of my lovely viewers, shout out Isabella from Penguin Random House if you're watching, sent me this amazing book that beautifully articulates my feelings on this cultural moment. It's called Blank Space, A Cultural History of the 21st Century by W. David Marks, and I will be referencing it throughout this video. Not sponsored, by the way, I just have amazing viewers. In the book, Marks references Jason Farrago's 2023 article, Why Culture Has Come to a Standstill, where he writes, "We are now almost a quarter of the way through what looks likely to go down in history as the least innovative, least transformative, least pioneering century for culture since the invention of the printing press." And despite being a 2000s baby, I couldn't agree more. As we dive deeper into the clutches of capitalism, it's becoming clear that art and culture are suffering and losing their significance. There are several theories for this standstill, but the one I find most compelling is our need to cling to the relatable and mediocre that I theorize is a response to diversity and the slightest threat of white supremacy losing its grip in this country. Check out my video on nostalgia as propaganda. And this has resulted in what Marx calls a blank space, where cultural innovators once thrived and created decade-defining contributions. There is now nothing but fleeting moments manufactured to capture our attention. As he states, even in a so-called populist era, a small cadre of celebrities continues to define what is possible, desirable, and righteous. Yet the blank space also opened the door for so many charlatans and reprobates. With creators no longer required to pursue artistic excellence, culture became a lowest common denominator battle for attention. Where there is no value other than money, honor is meaningless, and where there is no honor, there cannot be shame. And without shame, infamy and esteem become indistinguishable. I will repeat that for those of you in the back. Without shame, infamy and esteem become indistinguishable. This state of affairs rewards sociopaths who are willing to weaponize their own disinhibition and amorality to dominate public discourse. The most controversial people swing the era's narratives so far toward themselves that the 21st century's artistic masterpieces often feel like outliers rather than exemplars of our time. The bar for talent and artistry gets lower by the second, and the only real qualifier becomes the right complexion and enough shamelessness to stay relevant by any means necessary. So who benefits most from this blank space? Who gets to be shameless without consequence, controversial without any real backlash, and mediocre without losing opportunities? Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. So now let's discuss what I call the gift of the rebrand. I've been wondering a lot lately, who's entitled to a reinvention? Not who's earned it, because unlike what they'd like you to believe, cancel culture isn't real, and neither is redemption and growth that is motivated solely by profit and infamy. I also wonder why we're keeping people around and increasing their fame because of a lukewarm PR attempt at a rebrand, when there are so many more talented individuals who aren't problematic. In our society, white women are given, or rather are entitled to, reinvention or rebrands, regardless of their past and present harm. This is because their image has historically been associated with innocence and elicits a clean slate no matter what they do or how much evidence points to the contrary. Their past harm, their present harm, their lack of talent, all of that is irrelevant and will always be overshadowed by their assumed goodness. Y'all ain't seen Wicked? Now you might notice I'm focusing on women here, and that's intentional. Men typically don't have to rebrand at all, they just continue. Maybe they apologize, maybe they don't. Chris Brown, Logan Paul, Kanye West, y'all's president, they face criticism and just keep going because they're typically supported by other men who don't care about their problematic behavior in the slightest. There's no performance of growth needed and hence no rebrand. I just had to say that because anytime you criticize a white woman, it turns into a bunch of whataboutisms about men. And it's like, yeah, men are shitty too.
So,
No, I'm saying
what
it is.
now?
But women have to perform change to maintain their status. They have to do the rebrand dance because their audience claims to care about accountability. And that performance, this fraudulent display of growth, is in some ways more insidious. At least with the men, you know what you're getting. These women are selling you a lie of transformation while banking on your short attention span and low standards. The rebrand is specifically a tool of white womanhood because white women can leverage their perceived innocence and capacity for growth in ways that men can't or don't need to. Men can rely on the boys will be boys or separate the art from the artist, but women rely on the she's changed, she's doing the work defense. There are 5 main issues that I've noticed cultivate the perfect storm for these women to be successful. And these issues don't exist in isolation, they feed into each other and create a cycle that's really hard to break. Problem 1, infantilization and innocence farming.
It's one thing to do what you did, and it's another thing to pretend you're all innocent and it's no big deal.
I'm just pointing out the facts.
Well, I'm pointing out the principle.
What principle?
Part of the reason white women are seen as innocent is our constant need to infantilize them. The consistent comment I received on my peak white feminism video was that Chapel Roan, at 27 years old, was just young and not good at articulating herself, even though her job is literally to write and communicate to the masses. When exactly will she be old enough to face criticism? I'm not a bondsman, okay? But some of y'all act like you're on the courthouse's payroll. The way you shoot these women bail pro bono. It's insane. Y'all are doing a lot for no pay. This perceived innocence is absurd considering the actual history and track record of this demographic. One example is a video my mom sent me of Toni Morrison where she highlights the insane reality of white women banding together to tip over buses filled with black children and light them on fire during the civil rights era.
During the civil rights movement, there were women who would rush out to the schoolyards when they were trying to integrate schools, and they would push over the school buses that were bringing black children to the school, push them over and set them afire. And when I saw that, I was wondering whether I could ever get a group of black women, under any circumstances, from any walk of life, to hurt some white children, to set a bus on fire full of white children for any reason. And I didn't believe I could ever find that. So I thought, that is the most degrading life I could imagine, of being an adult who could do that. The absence of that shame was so profound that the real victim was not those children. It was those women who had given up everything, their motherhood, their womanhood, their citizenship, everything, to do that nasty thing. Now that is a true victim of history.
And also, underlying that behavior is a shocking barbarism.
And I have a question for you. Is it so unbelievable to you that a group of white women would do that in the 1950s or today? Because it's not to me. I always love that joke from Michelle Wolf about white women fighting to have jobs when black women always had them. My addition to that joke is that being racist proponents of oppression feels like a full-time job to me. But in all seriousness, with documented moments of insidiousness like what Toni Morrison highlighted, it's incredibly impressive that white women never have to worry about falling into negative stereotypes or feeling the need to prove themselves. But what women of color do. It's incredible marketing, but you will not trick me. Problem 2, the myth of cancel culture. So let's first define cancel culture. As Connor Garrell puts it, cancel culture is a makeshift digital contract wherein people loosely agree to not support a person, especially economically, in order to somehow deprive them of their livelihood. The most obvious problem with cancel culture is that it rarely has any tangible or meaningful effect on the lives and comfortability of the canceled. Cancel culture seems like a deeply personal journey rather than a sweeping universal one. It's a plebiscite, not an official ruling, in which the terms and conditions are often hazy. The sooner we stop pretending cancel culture is a binding, comprehensive movement rather than an individual decision, the easier it might be to come to terms with the fact that gravity has a delayed and sometimes nullified effect on people like Logan Paul. The internet rewards drama and sensationalism. I saw a great clip of comedian Anthony Jeselnik commenting on the ridiculousness of using cancel culture as a crutch in comedy.
But I hate people complaining about cancel culture. I hate comics complaining in general. It's the second comedy boom. It's not going anywhere. People making more money than ever before. And Dave Chappelle, who's won every award in the world, is complaining that cancel culture is making his job harder. It's like, your job shouldn't be easy. Right. If you're going to make that much money, like, hey, maybe it should be a little hard. You know, I got no issue with that. I mentioned Anthony in my Culture Vulture video along with Dan Mintz for calling out John Mulaney's black scent. From what I know, he's been pretty based so far. I mean, he's still a white male comedian, so let me chill a little bit. But I think his comments apply to the broader entertainment industry as well. Maybe you should actually have to be talented and held accountable to maintain a career in the public eye. Just me? Oh, okay. I think the best and only real example of cancellation was Jenna Marbles, who I actually respect immensely for her decision to self-cancel rather than attempt a monetizable rebrand.
I also get a lot of tweets from people that are saying like, we love you, you unproblematic queen, which always makes me uncomfortable because I'm a person. Those of you that are familiar with how long I've been on the internet know that that's not true, that I've definitely done things in the past that weren't great, and I'm not completely unproblematic, and I've tried my best to grow up and to be a better person. There's a couple things that people want me to address and apologize for, and I'm happy to do that because what I want from the people that I support and that I like is to have accountability and to know that I'm supporting someone whose morals and values align with my own. And yeah, there's things in my past I'm not proud of. I want to hold myself accountable, and it's painful to do it, and it's not fun, and it hurts, and I'm ashamed of things I've done and said in my past, but it's important. And yeah, I hope this felt like something that you needed to hear from me. And I'm not sure that I want to continue doing stuff on this channel. And I don't want to put anything out in the world that's going to hurt anybody. So I need to be done with this channel for now or for forever. I don't know.
She saw that she couldn't actually grow by continuing to profit from the audience she had built while engaging in problematic behavior, and how easily she would be forgiven by the people who supported the problematic behavior in the first place. She chose not to continue to profit off of the performance of growth. Growth can and should happen off camera, out of the public eye. Growth can happen without the incentive of profit. That's what actual accountability looks like, but that takes character, self-awareness, and a moral compass. And why would you do any of that? Why would you do any of those things when your image as a white woman lends to a stupidly, easily attainable rebrand? Problem 3, performative activism as a shield. Unlike in the past, where courageous women and allies were educated and spoke on social issues that put their careers at risk, it's now the opposite. It is now profitable for public figures to overinflate their very superficial connection to these issues in order to establish goodwill amongst the public. Activism is part of the branding now, and it works. These women often align themselves with racism and harmful ideologies when it suited them, but as the tides turn, they've opted into performative activism that passive consumers are ready to eat up because our standards are so low. Francesca Ramsey put it best when speaking on Trisha Paytas.
Trisha's done the work to unlearn and redeem herself. I'm sorry. Has the definition of those words changed? What work has she done? If by redeem herself you mean take advantage of people's short attention spans by reinventing herself in order to avoid consequences for the hateful she's done throughout her entire career, yes. I'll give her credit. She's very good at that.
That reminds me of Jujubee.
Tyra is unique. I can see that. Nerve. She had the nerve to wear those ugly shoes. I give that to her.
And when people, most of the time Black women, bring up our issues with their problematic past and present, we're hit with what I've recently learned are called thought-terminating cliches. She apologized. She's growing. She's changing. She's just a girl. Like, what do you want from her? She's doing her best not to be racist. These phrases shut down criticism without requiring actual accountability. But the truth is, you would support them anyway. Stop acting like if they weren't making progress that you'd stop supporting them. It's just a tool to gaslight people and shut them up. Just admit that you don't care as long as you're entertained. The funny thing is that that's the only reason Taylor Swift is getting any pushback right now. It's because her album sucked. It's because the music was bad. All right. No one is saying these women are beyond redemption, but why does redemption look like continued time in the spotlight, constant defense, and insane career opportunities? I don't care how much money they throw at charity to hedge against criticism or pander with their performances and t-shirts. It's weird. It's exactly like when Galinda changes her name to Glinda in Wicked out of solidarity for Dr. Dillamond and the oppressed animals to rounds of applause and is lauded for her bravery or braverism. But she literally only did it publicly because Fiero was losing interest in her and gravitating to Elphaba because of her principles and moral compass. Problem 4, mediocrity as currency. I'm also just really bothered by the general lack of curiosity I see from white audiences. My freshman year of college, I encountered Swifties for the first time in my life and was shocked to hear several people look me dead in my eyes and with no hint of irony claim that Taylor Swift was one of the best artists and lyricists of our time. When I realized that they were serious, I rationalized it to myself thinking the only way someone could believe that is true is if they've never been exposed to a diverse range of music. But the thing that bothered me the most was the confidence with which they made these claims. And here's the thing, even if we put aside all the problematic behavior for a moment, even if these women were completely unproblematic angels, they still aren't talented in ways that would warrant their success. That's the kicker. That's the kicker for me. These women aren't innovators. They're not even particularly skilled at their crafts. Does Julia Fox have a craft? I don't know. I'm sure y'all thought Julia Fox's book was entertaining, but what exactly did she do to get a book deal in the first place? I think this is kind of a FU to the somewhat rise of merit-based choices in the industry, like Halle Bailey and Cynthia Erivo being clearly the best options for their roles, which led to race swaps. The response is to put mediocre white stars in the spotlight as a show of power that they can, while women of color have to be infinitely more talented to even be considered. Problem 5, the passive consumer.
It's like kind of against my principles.
Your principles? Craig, don't be an asshole. You don't have principles.
All of this works because the average consumer has no standards, values, or principles. They don't even think that having them is an option most of the time, and they will settle for whatever is on their feed at a given time and has enough likes. We then confuse this for good art and cultural contribution, when really, it's just a way to capitalize on the fact that most people stand for nothing and will accept anything. This anything is typically a white woman our brains have been conditioned to project goodness onto and invest our time and admiration into. And I'll say this with love. The queer community is the first to fall for this. And we'll talk about that more as we go through these case studies. Not every white woman with a TikTok account, a stylist, and zero self-awareness is an icon. We need to do better. In reality, though, we have far more agency in who we platform than we think. Define your values, live by them, support people who embody them, or at the very least, aren't the antithesis of them. So here's the cycle. Mediocre white woman engages in problematic behavior for attention, faces brief but inconsequential backlash, does a performative ass rebrand, the audience accepts it, she's rewarded with fame and resources, produces more mediocre art, and then the cycle repeats itself. The harm of the rebrand is that it grants mediocre and borderline sociopathic women who are willing to capitalize on this goodwill by whatever means necessary to gain fame. This is usually stupidly easy and will grant them fame and in turn endless resources, visibility, and opportunity. This creates a cycle that breeds performative activism, performative growth, and performative accountability, followed by mediocre and meaningless art and pop culture that only values profiting from our attention. Now, let me show you exactly how this plays out with some case studies. I said in my video on Tyler, the Creator, that I have Addison Rae blocked purely out of principle, and I got so many comments being like, oh, her music's actually really good though. She's gotten better. And look, I bet you believe that the music is good. I'm sure she hired great producers and writers, but she hasn't earned my engagement. She hasn't earned my attention, and my principles don't allow me to support her work, regardless of whether it's good or not. The word principle went in one ear and out the other. The fact that so many people can't understand that the music is good is not enough to override everything else is exactly the problem. People are so easily swayed by whatever is in front of their face at any given time. These women and their teams know this. They're banking on your lack of principles and curiosity. Y'all were not listening when Galleria said it's the principle of the thing and Cheetah Girls 2, and it shows. But I was. So with that being said, let's talk about Addison first. Addison Rae rose to TikTok fame doing dances created by Black creatives to songs by Black artists. She found success and a home in the all-white Hype House. Then there's Jalea Harmon. She was 14 years old when she created the Renegade dance. 14. Her choreography went viral with millions of people performing it across TikTok. And Jalea is doing great with a following of her own, but only a fraction of the success and opportunities Addison has found, despite being an actual creative force behind one of the biggest trends the platform has ever seen, which really tells you everything you need to know about who gets to be the faces of trends they didn't create. Not even be the faces, but like benefit in the long term from. Addison also has a questionable conservative past. She was filmed excitedly going out of her way to greet and introduce herself to Donald Trump.
I'm Addison. Nice to meet you. I have to say hi. Hello.
Like buddy, you know?
Nice to meet you.
She reposted a video of a woman talking down on Black Lives Matter and instead promoting All Lives Matter. She has since put out a statement / apology, so cool. Addison's insane success launched career opportunities like a makeup line that failed. She was in a panned remake of She's All That, and she had several failed attempts at a music career. But in 2024, something shifted, and Addison launched a new era filled with more refined aesthetics deemed cool and interesting by the masses. She publicly liked trans artists and read Britney Spears' memoir, which signaled she was cool now. With cosigns from white queer artists and artists in those spaces like Charlie XCX and Troye Sivan, it was official. Addison Rae was now cool. Obviously, me as Kaylani, I'm not understanding that she read Britney Spears' memoir. I'm clearly not understanding the power of that. I'm not getting it. She got her rebrand. Suddenly, she's self-reflective, a queer ally with a whole aesthetic persona. She likes trans artists' music, which people assume means she supports their rights, when that isn't a given at all. That is not a given. She wore a t-shirt that says protect the dolls. A t-shirt isn't activism when you have a documented past of racism and you've gone out of your ways to greet Donald Trump. And it's like, I hate the idea that because she supports trans artists that we need to support her or something. Like, why are we giving her cool points for liking art and music made by trans women instead of just supporting the art and creation of trans women when it's so much better? Like, Kim Petras is right there. There aren't any other talented musicians without a problematic past that we can support, so we have to support Addison Rae.
In a time where personal narrative and social responsibility are so key, her transformation seems more like a calculated pivot rather than her own personal evolution to her followers that view activism as authenticity. It feels like brand safe neutrality, and to a lot of people that's very out of touch. The success she has was built in part by trends that were pioneered by Black creators. When she avoids acknowledgement, it reinforces those kinds of systemic imbalances. I think it just kind of hits a nerve for a lot of people on how authenticity can be overshadowed by a rebrand.
And the reward for this rebrand, a Grammy nomination for Best New Artist. Let me tell you who won that category in 2023 and what they had to do to get there. Victoria Monet, who wrote for everyone else in the industry for a decade before getting her flowers. Doechii also just won her first Grammy last year after years of hard work and dedication to her craft. Both of these women worked for years perfecting their artistry. They earned their Grammy nominations through talent, dedication, and actual cultural contribution. Talent and Blackness means you have to be undeniable and wait your turn, if your turn ever comes at all. But Addison Rae is getting her flowers through a few regurgitated aesthetics and cosigns from white gays. Are we serious? Can we be a little bit more serious, please, as a society? Since writing the script, I did a binge of Addison Rae's music, expecting, honestly hoping to be blown away. I was hoping that the music was actually so good that it would make her reemergence and success make sense. It's so whatever. She went from terrible to okay and I'm supposed to leap for joy, but that's the standard for white stardom. Just be better than we expected you to be and we'll take care of the rest. Julia Fox, 365 Party Girl. Party Girl is one of my favorite movies, and Julia Fox reminds me of the main character Mary if TikTok was a feasible career path and Mary never decided to do something productive with her life.
What do you want me to do, huh? I don't have a job. I'm a
loser. Shoot me.
I have no idea what this woman does, nor do I care. I remember she dated Kanye West following his very public and very volatile split from Kim Kardashian. She was in Uncut Gems in a relatively small role. From that, I remember her viral TikTok soundbite.
I was Josh Safdie's muse when he wrote Uncut Gems.
Right. But despite all of this peripheral awareness of Julia, I still don't understand what she does or how she landed a book deal. If every black person who had a viral soundbite got a book deal, it would be insane. I just highly doubt that a black woman could profit off of a relationship with Kanye West after his publicly problematic behavior in the way she did, or at the very least survive being associated with him.
The man was being normal around me.
Julia, be for real. You need to find the winner. You need somebody to help you find the realness, because I help you. I help you. You were dating him years after he said slavery was a choice, years after he was out there triumphing for Trump. Okay? You just didn't care. Everyone keeps talking about that you're growing, you're learning, da-da-da. You didn't care. You didn't care enough not to be involved with him for that little month that y'all were involved together, whether it was a real relationship or not, a PR, whatever. You didn't care enough. Okay? And then you're talking about you wanted to do it to be a distraction for... Julia, you were distracting him from Kim Kardashian. Julia, what is this? State the misogynist way into feminism? That's not...
I'm seeing the pattern, and somehow this is Charlie XCX's fault. Why does her cosign mean so much, and why does she use it to uplift people like Addison and Julia when Rina Sawayama is right there? Oh, that's right, my bad. But nonetheless, Julia is now considered an icon with millions of followers. She's starring in films like him and cutting off legends like Marlon Wayans during press tours.
I think the youth needs to hear what real men are. I think there's masculinity.
What are real men?
Right. To me, a real man is a responsible man.
Because every time a man does some they'll be like, that's not a real man. And it's like, looks like a man to me.
I think a real man is in touch with his feminine
looks like a duck and it walks like a duck. Yeah.
I think a real man is knows how to unstrap from his
I don't know.
ego.
I think the real man thing is just a thing like that people invented to like excuse bad behavior. You know?
Yeah,
like all men are real men.
Said like a real man.
Period. Say how it is.
I think,
And I've talked about white feminism on my channel before, but this is another Hall of Famer. This is another great example. It just feels like the white feminist version of empowerment is to be able to be rude and cut people, black people, off in conversation with no pushback in the way white men do. That's it. That's the serve. Not any actual dedication to bettering the lives of women and in turn everyone, like intersectionality and womanism promotes. No. It's just a way for white women to exert power over others in the way patriarchy has done to them. Her most recent blunder was on Halloween, where she showed up to an event dressed up as Jackie Kennedy on the day JFK was assassinated. She dressed up as a woman on the day her husband's skull fragments and brain matter were plastered all over her clothes as a Halloween costume. That's y'all's icon. When she got pushback, she made an Instagram post with a caption, "I'm dressed as Jackie Kennedy in the pink suit, not as a costume, but as a statement." Right. When her husband was assassinated, she refused to change out of her bloodstained clothes, saying, "I want them to see what they've done. The image of the delicate pink suit splattered with blood is one of the most haunting juxtapositions in modern history. Beauty and horror, poise and devastation. Her decision not to change clothes, even after being encouraged to, was an act of extraordinary bravery. It was performance, protest, and mourning all at once. A woman weaponizing image and grace to expose brutality. It's about trauma, power, and how femininity itself is a form of resistance. Long live Jackie O."
I just kind of feel like this really sums up white feminism. This whole thing. Because it'd be like, okay, I see where you're going. I think we could have done something different. You know, like that. This is it. This is white feminism.
What is she calling attention to or making a statement on exactly? One of the most infamous assassinations in American history? We needed Julia Fox's take on that in 2025? It just feels like there's a lot of other crazy and pressing going on that she could be making a statement on to her nearly 2 million followers, but hey, that's just me. It's my personal opinion. I also recognize the power in Jackie's actions that day, but the disconnect for me is I wouldn't make that a Halloween costume to post on my Instagram. Like, why are we cosplaying widows for likes? Clearly, I'm not understanding that it's iconic. The caption really just felt like a last-minute PR decision when her performed lack of self-awareness didn't go over as well as it usually does, because when you listen to actual interviews from that night and Julia is asked about her costume, she says,
"Hi, I'm Julia Fox, and tonight I am Jackie Onesti. Tonight I'm serving bloody diva single mob who's about to cash that check."
But what about the juxtaposition of poise and devastation though? Right, but y'all will eat her statement up. On what exactly, it don't even matter. I don't understand why I have to explain why this is weird and bad, so I won't. She's just too old for this. She's 35 years old. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's not endearing, to me at the very least, but it seems I'm in the minority. The woman has no real talent, just the audacity to stay around and shamelessly assert herself in the conversation by any means necessary. I don't know how to put that in a kinder way, nor do I care to. Maybe it should be a little hard. And if you're more worried about me being mean to Julia Fox than you are about Julia calling herself Jackie O'Nasty and acting out the horror of Jackie Kennedy's husband's death for Instagram likes, then you might just be a lost cause. Go ahead and log off for me, because I fear it's just not going to penetrate. Now we have Trisha Paytas. Trisha is an OG YouTuber who has built an entire career on exploiting her own mental health issues and desperation for attention. I genuinely think a lot of people find entertainment in subconsciously pitying her and making themselves feel better about their own situations. You cannot convince me there's genuine admiration or appreciation for someone with no discernible talent or cultural contribution beyond the will to be shamelessly ever present and problematic. So let me lay out her extensive past. I'm going to do it as fast as possible because I don't even know why I'm wasting my breath on this woman. Trisha has said the N-word multiple times, documented. She's done blackface, even though she tries to deny it. She's appropriated Asian culture. She pretended to be transgender for attention.
And as far as my gender, I do identify as a male, and if there are people that are uncomfortable with that, I'm not sure what to say to that other than this is how I've always felt since a very young age. So
she's been recorded flippantly saying she's for Israel, not Palestine. When confronted about her racist past, she's consistently lied and downplayed it depending on who she's talking to. She even claimed that she couldn't be racist because in the UK, they don't tolerate racism. I knew that was going to kill me. When I got to it. The UK, the country known for their stance on anti-racism.
In the past, when people call me out for my Trump tweets, racist tweets, like immigrant tweets, I'm like the first.
You had racist tweets?
No, but it was something I did a Trump video, a trolling Trump video, like years ago. Did you know about this?
I knew about the Trump one, but I know racist ones.
No, not racist, because you won't be on Celebrity Big Brother if you have racist tweets. There was people who photoshopped racist ones, but they're calling the Trump video racist because I said the thing about immigrants or whatever like that. When I was on Celebrity Big Brother, the big thing in the UK is racism. They don't let you on that show if you're a little bit racist. So they do in-depth research to see if you were racist at any point. And if they let me on Celebrity Big Brother where they kick people off for being racist, I'm not. It's not consistent.
So your evidence that you're not racist is that you're on Big Brother.
She literally just says anything, but it works. Y'all believe it. Doesn't matter. I just hate the idea oh, this isn't well-known information. You didn't want to know. Y'all didn't want to know. And I know people will try to use her mental illness as an excuse the way she does, but you can be racist and not have a mental illness, or you can be racist and have mental illness. Mental illness can exacerbate it, but the racism had to be there to begin with, babe. It's not a cause and effect situation. Correlation doesn't equal causation. There's a great video on this topic called Your BPD Doesn't Make You a Bad Person, Your Values Do, from the Brittany Simon podcast that I highly recommend you check out. Despite all of this, which is not so far in the past, Trisha has gotten insane opportunities, SNL, a Broadway debut. She's even going to be in season 3 of Euphoria alongside Natasha Lyonne. What? Trisha supporters spew nonsense about growth and change, but that growth and change can come without profiting from a platform. Trisha is constantly adapting herself to get attention, and it continues to work. The new persona she can profit from is self-aware queer icon who's growing, and as usual, it's working. She's just like a Weasley chameleon, and that's why I will never respect her. When people like Jenna Marbles actually decided years ago not to profit from a platform that was built from harm and showed an actual commitment to growth, y'all will never be able to convince me that Trisha's arc is something worth praising. It's just the most profitable career path for her at this point, and she's not even doing it well. Y'all just want to believe in it so badly. Now let's talk about Azealia Banks. Azealia is actually talented with undeniable music ability. She's also problematic. She's also said harmful things, but Azealia gets no rebrand, no second chances, no Broadway opportunities. Every controversy ends her momentum permanently. Why? Because she's a black woman. There's no assumed goodness to fall back on. The gift of the rebrand is not offered to her, no matter how talented she is. And before anyone comes at me saying, oh, but Azealia Banks is a bad example because she's so problematic. Yeah, that's actually why she's a good example. She is problematic, very much so. So is Trisha. But one of them actually has talent. One of them has contributed something of artistic value, and yet only one of them gets to be on SNL, Broadway, and Euphoria. Only one gets to claim growth and be believed. Trisha has no talent, but infinite chances. Azealia has real talent, but she gets zero grace. A few weeks ago, I made a community poll asking if y'all wanted this video, and I got this great comment. The collective forgiveness of Trisha Paytas is truly so beyond me, especially from creators espousing liberal/leftist views, and I feel like no one talks about it. Not even just forgiveness, the outright support and infantilization, despite the fact that she was always a fully grown woman behaving like that because she knew it would be profitable, really pisses me off. Ditto. I think Chapel Roan and her connection to Trisha is the best example of this inconsistency. Chapel Roan publicly condemned Kamala Harris and the left over her stance on Palestine.
And more so, Palestine.
Anyways, we're for Israel, not Palestine.
No, nobody's saying that.
Oh.
What do you mean we're not for Israel?
We're for people.
Okay, we're for all people, but
For
Israel
all
all the way.
Yeah, Chapel loves Trisha and even wanted desperately to go on her podcast.
I just need to talk to Trisha Paytas. It was so sad. I was listening to her podcast, but I got so overwhelmed, with so much. And I was like, I need to stop. But I would love to talk to her.
Honor to be mentioned again, because she just mentioned us again last night, which was literally so nice. I'm telling you, she's literally the nicest person, because also she had sent me a DM a couple weeks later and it was just I'm so sorry, I'm just going through a lot, and I was do not apologize, and I never even said that, because I was whatever. I was so excited because people saw her liking my photos, and I was oh my god.
And I already know people are going to say, oh, but it's different because Trisha isn't running for president. Yeah, you're right. She's not. Trisha has zero political power, which means her flippant dismissal of a humanitarian crisis is purely a reflection of her character and values, not any policy, thank God. So if you're willing to publicly condemn Kamala, a black woman who actually has to navigate complex geopolitical realities as a politician, but you give Trisha Paytas a pass, what does that tell us about your standards and who they apply to? All Trisha had to do was not mock a humanitarian crisis. That's the bar. Just don't laugh at human suffering, maybe? And she couldn't even clear it. Y'all are so willing to excuse a white woman's cruelty, then hold her to basic human decency. But we expect black women to be perfect even when they're operating in impossible positions. And let's be clear, I'm not saying Kamala is above criticism. I do not agree at all with how she handled talking about Palestine during the election cycle. But I also know that a lot of people were simply waiting for a reason to condemn her candidacy, and they got it. What I am saying is that if your principles matter, they should matter consistently, not just when it's convenient or when it's a black woman you can performatively drag during your crash out. That's the inconsistency we're talking about.
So yeah, I'm voting for Kamala, but I'm not settling for what has been offered, because that's questionable.
You can say I'm probably gonna vote for Kamala, but I just don't know enough to really engage in this, because a lot of what her rhetoric is right now feels like it's derived of TikTok comments being strung into one sentence. Based off what she said, I'm did you watch the debate? It doesn't really sound like you sat down and watched the whole thing, which again, I understand right now, girl. You don't have to, but that also means you don't have to speak on it. And what tipped me off to this was her mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name, right? At this point, saying Kamala Harris is either a microaggression by mispronouncing a black woman's name on purpose, or B, you're so detached from any media that you would still be saying Kamala. If you were tapped into what's happening in American politics, you know her name is Kamala Harris, right? And there's so much aimless inaction riddled throughout her video by saying I'm voting for Kamala. First of all, again, microaggression. Really don't like that. Second of all, questioning something, that is not an action. Ooh, what are you doing today? I'm questioning. What does that mean? That is not action. And in such a tenuous time, doing anything that might conjure up any disbelief in who is the better candidate for trans people and for the Palestinian liberation, that is not an act of service. You are not helping the cause by being should I vote for her? Yes, if you care about trans people or the Palestinian liberation, which again, I wish we were not allies with Israel, but we are. That's the reality. There's so much I want a perfect candidate, and it's not possible. There's no such thing. We have ties to countries that we don't agree with, but that is how the U.S. works. We live in America. We have allies that I don't. That does not mean that I can sit there and go, well, I'm questioning. What's the answer?
Now on to Sydney Sweeney.
I'm not the bad guy. Everyone keeps looking at me like I'm the bad guy, but I'm not the bad guy.
Well, you're not the good guy.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I would like it to be known that in my pop feminism video, I literally called Sydney Sweeney's double down. I am so good at this. Or maybe these people are just so predictable because of history. Either way, I was right.
We're sort of talking around this American Eagle ad right now, and maybe we should just talk about it. So, were you surprised by the reaction?
I did a jean ad. I mean, the reaction definitely was a surprise, but it was, I love jeans.
Of all these women, Sydney is the one whose approach I prefer, not because I support it, but because at least she's not pretending to be apologetic or morphing herself into a performative ally. She's taking a different, more mask-off approach and appealing to the conservative crowd that will support her for simply being a basic busty blonde. I like alliteration, sorry. Sydney is a pretty mediocre actress who's struggling to maintain relevancy and needs to rely on shock value. This leads to things like the jeans ad and her subsequent doubling down. I do think it's the losing strategy long term, and performative pandering would probably be a better move at this point, but I'd rather her do what she's doing than watch another fake rebrand like these other ladies. Outrage marketing is effective, and she's using it. At least she's honest about it, or at least not dishonest in the way these other women are. And I don't even know if dishonest is the thing, but they're just passively benefiting from us projecting goodwill onto them. That's more so the thing. And Sydney's like, I don't want that. No, thank you. Don't put that on me.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. That was kind of the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
But I genuinely believe if she came out and did the whole apologetic rebrand shtick like these other women did, and if the ad wasn't so cringy or on the nose, she could fully have recovered from that in like 3 months. She probably still could in a year or so because of the gift of the rebrand. It's always available to her. She can pick it up whenever she wants. That's the difference between her and the others. They're all playing the same game. She's just using a different strategy for now. Finally, Taylor Swift. I have no real interest in dissecting her career in depth. She is simply the blueprint perfected. Taylor is the pop star equivalent of all these women. She arguably had just enough talent for her archetype to become a billionaire based on this exact complex we've been discussing. The fact that her latest tour was called the Eras Tour is almost too perfect for this argument. Constant reinvention, endless rebrands, each one treated as a cultural reset, when really it's just the same thing in different aesthetics. She's mediocre in every way that matters, as a lyricist, as a vocalist, a performer, but she is exceptional at one thing: understanding exactly how to leverage white womanhood, relatability, and victimhood into unprecedented success. Remember what I said at the beginning of the video about white fame being built on relatability and attainability? Taylor never serves. She's dedicated to never serving. She never challenges her audience. She never pushes boundaries musically or aesthetically in any meaningful way. If she presented her actual economic status and resources honestly, it would alienate her core fan base who need to believe she's just like them. I said that like Uncut Gems. I said it with the same cadence. She's proof that the formula works. She's what happens when you perfect a rebrand and make it your entire brand. I won't go deeper because what more is there to say? She's the final boss of everything I've been talking about. The ultimate example of how far the gift of the rebrand can take you when you know exactly how to use it. Of the 5 main problems I mentioned at the beginning of the video that create space for these women to thrive, the passive consumer problem is the one that I want to expand on. I've touched on it with each of these case studies, but as individual consumers, we need to do a lot better. Marginalized communities especially. I understand that we have been primed to believe that we aren't even worth the bare minimum. The world tries as hard as possible to make us believe it, and even if we start to internalize those beliefs ourselves, it will never be true. We are worth so much more. Our time, attention, and support is worth more than mediocre art wrapped in performative activism. I personally noticed this most with the queer community, but when I talked to my mom about it, she said it sounds a lot like the Black community as well. So it seems like nobody's safe. It's known that if you are in some controversy and need to restore goodwill, start with the gays. Do you expect me to believe it's just a coincidence that following Sabrina Carpenter's controversial summer, where she was accused of perpetuating conservative trad wife aesthetics, that she pivoted to a disco-inspired pop single and staged a performance at the VMAs featuring drag queens, trans women, and signs saying "Protect the Dolls"? No, you cannot use Coleman Domingo against me. You will not trick me. I see right through your ruse. I see right through it. I think that's Brendan Wardell. It's the same playbook Addison used with her Protect the Dolls t-shirt. Minimal effort and maximum goodwill is restored. I'm not saying Sabrina or Addison don't support the community. There's no way for me to know that, but the opportunistic timing is not lost on me. It honestly saddened me to see people be so easily moved by this because she could have done nothing. The bar is in hell, truly. But hey, in today's world, a t-shirt and a selfie is activism. Our support is won over way too easily. I mean, I don't know why I'm saying our. I'm not supporting these women. I'm not supporting these women. Why would I ever support these women? I've noticed this resignation in how people talk about these women, especially among white creators discussing Addison's rebrand. There's this attitude of, yeah, she's popular now and that's that. What are we supposed to do? Not support her? And it's like, yeah, that was always an option. As if we're powerless, as if our attention isn't literally what makes careers. Why do we have to support her now? She just has to be the new pop princess because she's here and has the right aesthetic at the right time? It's ludicrously superficial and defeatist. I'm gonna put a picture of Ludacris, I already know. I fill her up. Balloons! If they even address these women's problematic past at all, they usually still end up with the conclusion, well, I mean, they got lucky and have all these resources. What, are they not supposed to use them? But that framing removes agency from someone like Trisha Paytas to step back if she actually cared about doing the right thing, like Jenna Marbles, and it removes our agency as consumers to say, no, I'm not gonna support this just because it's right in front of my face. Even if Jenna Marbles wasn't a clear example of like doing the right thing, this defeatist and sorry attitude of like, nobody's done the right thing, so why should we start now is just so weird to me. Like, no expectations that people would do the right thing, ever. There's like this level of powerlessness and removing one's own agency when it matters. I talked about it in my review for Gen V season 2. It's on my second channel. When I was talking about Kate as a character, and you see it with Glinda too from Wicked, this immediate removal of any agency when it comes to doing the right thing. When they're expected to do the right thing, it's like, what? Like, what? You expect me to do do the right thing, but they have no problem using their power and agency to do the wrong thing when it benefits them. Just because someone puts on the right aesthetics and drops a good song doesn't mean we all have to fall in line and support them. We can choose differently, but most people find it easier to just accept whoever the algorithm serves them at any given time. Most people are also threatened by excellence, so they uphold people that make them feel better about their place in life. Trisha Paytas and Julia Fox are in their mid-30s doom scrolling on TikTok 24/7 like a lot of you. The difference is, though, that they are making a career that brings other opportunities funded by your attention. You think you're pitying them and laughing at them, but they're laughing all the way to the bank, and they honestly probably think you're stupid, and they know you don't stand for anything just like them. I can vividly imagine them rolling over in their beds at night thinking, how have they let me get this far? I think these women and their teams know that the average person doesn't have principles and they don't really stand for anything, and that's exactly why people like them, because they don't either. I said it in my Tyler video that we all just pretend that these people have changed because they stopped doing the harmful behavior as loudly and publicly. They can't do that anymore and profit from it. It's all for optics and profit. But even though I'm trying to explain this, like, y'all are not actually invested in these people's growth anyway. You're invested in them staying stagnant so you can feel better about your own stagnancy, or so you can look down on them and feel better about the little growth you've made in comparison. People love the audacity and mediocrity of these women because they too wish they could be rich, famous, and iconic for their mediocrity as well. It's the same mentality of people who defend billionaires because they want to become billionaires one day. But the thing is, they never will be, and I think they know that. They'll settle for living vicariously through these women and shamelessly defending them, because while I don't respect these women, their choices, or their careers, if I know anything, it's that it do take nerve, and they have it in spades. And a lot of y'all don't even have that. You don't stand for anything, but you can offer a follow, a like, and a repost. Is that really the extent of your agency, and you're using it to prop up mediocrity? So what do we do about this? How do we break the cycle even when we're the ones funding it with our attention?
So
No, I'm saying
what now?
I know I'm being harsh on everyone, but I need to cut through the niceties and neutrality that have led these women to success in the first place. This is again a result of our lack of standards, but I'm aware that many people don't even realize that they can choose differently. Some of you might be feeling guilty right now for supporting these women. Good. As Audre Lorde wrote, guilt can be useful if it leads to change, if it becomes the beginning of action rather than just defensiveness. So don't just sit in that guilt. Don't let it become a tool to protect your ignorance. Transform it into action. And the funniest thing is when I say transform it into action, that means unfollow, babe. It's not even that hard. Unfollow, that's the action I'm asking of you today. Unfollow is the action. As Mark resolves in Blank Space, we must remember that culture ultimately belongs to all of us. If we dislike what has transpired, it is within our power to reverse these trends. Even if a radical transformation of the global economic structure remains unlikely, we still possess the most powerful tool for cultural change: the ability to choose our own norms and values. Above all, we must begin with reviving a collective belief in the necessity of cultural invention. We gain not a clearer understanding of what went wrong, but also a renewed sense of purpose, to reclaim culture's role as a force for aesthetic innovation and transformative change. So I encourage you to sit with yourself, reflect on the art and artists you currently engage with, ask yourself how and when you started consuming them, and if you actually enjoy it, or just never thought to look for anything different. And if you find yourself defending someone with, oh, but they apologized, or they're growing, stop it. Get some help. Just admit that you never cared about their ethics, morality, or talent to begin with. That's okay to acknowledge, but stop hiding behind these excuses. Just be honest or continue to lie poorly. You're not tricking me. I have my own principles and standards, but I'm not perfect. Perfection isn't the goal, but neither is never trying anything different. Here are the steps laid out clearly. 1. Define your values and principles. 2. Live by them. 3. Support people who embody them. And 4. Stop supporting people who are the very antithesis of them. Your principles may look completely different than mine. Just define them, own them, and stop hiding behind rebrands to justify why you don't stick to them. If you're looking for a head start, I made a playlist with song and artist recommendations for my 100K Q&A that I will be linking in the description below here as well. The stakes are actually higher than you think. Culture and art are dying. Marx describes in his book how this lack of meaningful art may actually be contributing to the rise of MAGA and fascism in this country. Culture helps define radical values, and when everything is a performative cash grab, it makes sense that nothing sticks and we are where we are. I will end on this quote from Blank Space: "We must begin with reviving a collective belief in the necessity of cultural invention, not just for entertainment, not just for profit, but for expanding how we see the world, broadening our values, and preparing for the future." that concludes this video. If you made it this far, go ahead and leave this emoji in the comments below. I know these videos do well, but they're very frustrating and very like mentally taxing to just rant about these women and the obviousness of a lot of their behavior just for it not to even make a dent in their careers. Not to say I want them to be canceled and never have an opportunity. I'm also not saying that, but I'm just like, they're gonna continue to be successful doing nothing, and that's just how it works. Like, you know, that sounds so defeatist and pessimistic, but it feels a little pointless, and I'd rather talk about other things that are interesting and more thought-provoking than, yeah, like white women get away with murder. I knew that. I made 2 videos on it at this point. I don't want my brand to be calling out the obvious and formulaic success of annoying, mediocre people to people who already pretty much agree with me. I say all these things, I lay it out pretty clearly, and what is it gonna change? What is it gonna change, you know? So for all the effort and all the explaining that I'm doing, it's just really frustrating. Even though I know these videos do well, it's just not very rewarding for me. So I just wanted to be transparent about that. These videos are probably gonna be more of a rarity going forward if I need to pay some bills or something. So just letting y'all know. But if you want more videos like this, I have 2 on my channel. Peak White Feminism is my most popular video. How Pop Feminism Fails Us is also pretty popular. I rewatched the Peak White Feminism video like yesterday or something, and I am astounded that that is my most popular video considering how bad my editing was and how choppy the audio is. But I mean, I guess that means I'm growing if I'm cringing looking back on it. But oh my god, oh my god, it was so bad. But I highly suggest that you check out my last video I did on this channel. It's a longer one, but it's the best video I've ever done, and it's the most interesting and thought-provoking. So yeah, I recommend you check that out. But either way, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you as always to my lovely patrons, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.